How's it going, guys? It's Erosion, and today I'm going to show you how to layer your saws. I've had a couple people tell me that my saws sound pretty good. I figured I'd kind of show you guys my process behind it and hopefully you get something from this. In the future, if you guys like this type of stuff, please let me know. I'm more than happy to cover some of my production tips. So this is the track I'm working with. So nothing too crazy. It's definitely future based. I personally love this stuff, so kind of works well for my style. So I'm gonna go through the layers first. So we have this top end. Filling out everything really above like 1K. It's kind of where it shines. That's the main saw. One of the first mid-range, saws, if you want to call it that. And then the second one. With those two mid-range saws, if you want to, whatever you want to call them, I usually have two panned left and right. Reason for that is because the sub's always mono, and then the frequencies right above that. Kind of want that a little bit wider to make it sound like that bass is really, really hitting. Because in this track, the sub is playing the exact same notes as the chords up above, or more or less the root notes. Here, real quick. So nothing too crazy, but I just kind of want all those frequencies to kind of mesh well together and have that bass kind of sound like it belongs, like it sounds like it's thick. So we'll start off with the top layer. This is a patch that I made. It's nothing too crazy. It's just a pulse width modulation. It's like a square and a saw, and then a wavetable from Cymatics. They have some pretty good stuff. Definitely check them out if you haven't. And then I just slapped it through a comb filter, which isn't doing all that much. It's kind of taming that high end. Gives it a nice sound. So let me go ahead and go into the effects. I'll go ahead and turn all these off first, just to kind of give you guys an idea what it sounded like before I did the post-processing. So it sounds like your typical like 80s style saw. Really wasn't a fan of that for this type of song, but I'm sure there's someone out there who's into that. So first thing I did was I used the dimension, just kind of widen out the sound a little bit. Just nothing too crazy. And then I added a chorus, brings in a little bit of the mid-range. It adds a little bit of phase. Then I crushed it through a tube distortion. Absolutely just mutilated it. Eliminated a lot of the high end, because with tube distortion it creates a lot of like unwanted white noise in a lot of cases. And since I was crushing it so hard, it was bad. So here it was without it. Like, it's just a bunch of hiss, which doesn't fit for what I need. And then I added in a flanger. Kind of crushing it a little more, actually. And then I did some compression, some multi-band compression. really bringing out the high end. EQ'd it, just added a little boost at 140 hertz. That's more or less for the Combs filter. It's actually cut out in the EQ after the fact, which you'll see here momentarily. And then another Combs filter, which is really making the sound kind of come together as a layer. So yeah, that's that. Like I said, cut it at 278 hertz. I cut this here for the main saw, which is where I want a lot of the power to come from. And then I cut this here because it was getting a little like high and tinny, a little too much for my taste. So there's that layer. Then there's the main. I really like this saw. This is just basically 2 saw waves. Yeah, this is just a slightly modified saw wave. And then here's the reverb filter. Basically, I went ahead and did delay compensation because a reverb filter always adds some sort of delay. Just make sure your tracks kind of line up as far as the timing when you're using that stuff. So here, I'll turn off the reverb filter. That's without the reverb. Completely different sound. I love reverb filters if they're done right. Because, I mean, you can completely mess them up and they, it never turns out well. So, with that, let me go ahead and turn off all the effects. It just sounds kind of dull and lifeless. So what I did was I added some dimension, just widening out a little bit. Mono without it. It sounds relatively mono without it, and then it kind of widens out. And I crushed it a little bit with the downsampler. Just added some, some high-end kind of information. And then I added a phaser. Basically dirtying up the signal a little bit. Chorus. Same deal. And then I just squashed it with an OTT. Really bringing out the high end, getting rid of a lot of the low end information. So from there, I cut everything below 144. I just didn't want anything to interfere with the sub, just because I believe this is a 12 dB per octave, which, if you don't know, basically it'll still have some of that low end information in it. So just to compensate, I just rolled it off a little more. I boosted around 426 just because I thought it sounded better. Nothing, too particular. I think it's actually right above where the mid saws sit. And then I took the width down just because I did have some weird phasing issues I was trying to correct. So there's that. And then here's the first mid saw layer. So this is another one I made. Basically, these are both from the Serum default library. 2 wavetables, Juno, and yeah, that one. And I threw it through a Combs, and basically just some noise kind of filling out the high end. So without it, just sounds like your default, saw. Nothing too crazy. Basically, the idea behind this is to help fill out that main saw layer. And all I did with this one actually was I made it a little bit wider with a dimension. It's very, very subtle, and then I boosted the high end because I really do like this bass sound, even though I ended up taking it out later on just for mixing reasons. and then I threw it through a flanger, which I really don't use all that often, but it gives some cool effects. So this is it without it. It adds a little bit of like mid to high range bite, right around 1K, I'd say. A lot of it actually does get taken out by the EQ later on. So with that, cut everything below 126. I know it's kind of sitting more down 100 hertz, where the frequencies are finally gone, which is fine. As long as the sub and that play fine together, that's all that matters. Took out 225. I absolutely hate like around 220 hertz. It always is a bad frequency. Kind of gives you that whale noise. And then beyond that, I took the width down a little bit just to kind of, free up room for, the high end synths and everything. And then the last one is what I call the Medicine chord. If you guys don't know Medicine, definitely check out his music. He is amazing. Love his stuff. And this is how it sounds. So all it is a square, some sort of modulated square wave from Serum, and a saw wave, a sine wave, and some noise. So here. Some of the high-end noise. And all I'm doing here is I'm chopping off everything below 639 hertz, or above 639 hertz, just because this is a mid-range sound. So all I did was I sent it through a bit crusher or down sample. So here, I'll just take all these off actually. So that's the default sound. Sounds nothing like what the result is. So with the down sample, it adds a lot of high end information and kind of tames the mid range. Chorus really widens it out, and kind of eliminates some of the weird high end artifacts I always get with the down sampler. Makes it sound very mellow. All I did here was just cut out, the low frequencies. I don't even think I cut it right. Yeah, it's 110 hertz, so I'll cut it there actually. And then I just compressed it. All right. So from there, on the channel strip, all I did was I sent it through 2 OTCs. I know I'm going to get shit in the comments probably just because it's OTT. But it really kind of helps bring everything together. So here's it without, or I'll play it with and without. So here's the thing with OTT on. Here it is without. So it really brings out a lot of the high end, kind of tames the mid range a little bit, kind of just glues everything together quite nicely. So I have 2 OTTs. Reason for that is I really like the sound of the first one. Just default settings. I really like the default OTT. I feel like you really don't have to play with it. Really boosts the high end. The mid range is kind of tamed, but it's also very full sounding. And then the second one's kind of accents that even more. So there it just sounds like it's lacking like the high end info. With the second one on. And it's not doing it way too hard. It's only 43% and 22%. I'm not absolutely crushing the sound. A lot of the dry signal is coming through. And then from there, I have an LFO tool, which is basically modulating everything on a quarter note with a little eighth note variation. And then on the entire bus, I have a side chain, which is basically the kick and the snare. Nothing too crazy. Just allowing room for the kick and snare to really come through. Without it, the kick just kind of sounds very bland and it all kind of blends together. So with it, with the snare, and then the bass layer as well as the saws are all kind of grouped together. And I have a utility automating the on-off, or the mute, actually, I'm sorry. Basically allowing that snare hit every single time, basically to have the room it needs to kind of breathe. So... just make sure that nothing else gets in the way. The only signal that is really kind of coming through is from the reverb channel. But other than that, there's nothing, too crazy. So that's about it. Yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, please let me know in the comment sections below. I really, really love to do some more of this stuff if you guys like it. Please reach out to me and let me know. Thank you very much, guys. Peace.